From the fourth period, DFO Insider David Pagnotta back with us once again here on Sekeres and Price, featuring Jeff Patterson. Welcome, David. How are you?
I'm good, boys. I'm in Vegas here for Mitch Marner Fest for some reason.
Did he used to play for the Leafs, David?
Allegedly.
Yes.
There's some people who believe he did. Some people who are very upset that he's just Mitch in general.
Yeah.
They're playing here. First game back against Toronto, and then they go to Toronto next Friday to face off in Toronto against the Leafs. So it's a big Toronto-esque hoopla BS situation that I found myself in. But here we are.
Doesn't help that the Leafs have one loss in 10 and are right below the playoff bar now, so there's extra drama there. So enjoy yourself. There's good storylines there. There's tons of storylines here, David, because Jim Rutherford did the car wash thing. We didn't know that was a mid-season State of the Union day for Jim Rutherford, but apparently it was.
Right. 2
expansive interviews, one with the local paper, one that appears in the Globe, of course, Patrick Johnson and Gary Mason, the 2 columnists on each side, and both of them dealt with different things. And it reached you. I think we were talking before we pressed record here that there was a wave of sentiment that started one way and ended up a different way here, and it reached outside this market clearly.
Yes, it did. I thought the first interview went well, and then the second one was interesting. Again, the advice is to stop talking. But in the grand scheme of it all, there were nuggets that were dished out in both, which was good to obviously to see and to decipher from and to kind of pick away from. This is going to be an interesting ride here for the next little bit for the Vancouver Canucks and for all of us that are tied to the team, with the type of changes that are going to happen and that the direction that this team is officially going in, clearly with Jim and Patrick Allvin acknowledging the rebuild, not a hybrid one, not a retool. We're going through this, so good on them for now understanding what direction they're going in, and how to properly define what the pathway is for this group. But you try to read the tea leaves of those interviews and you take that into account with everything else that's going on and all the chatter around the league and talking to everybody around there to see what may happen next. And, I'm curious to see what's going to happen next. I think we all thought Sherwood was going to be next. It hasn't happened yet. And now he's injured. So what is the next domino to fall? And typically when you go on a bit of a media blitz like this, at least for the Canucks, there's action that follows. So I'm curious to see what type of action that actually is.
Right. So on that point, Jim put out the memo to all other teams back in late November that he was open for business, and the only business they've done is Quinn Hughes. So he continues to talk, and I assume some of that in his mind is to try to drum up business. The lines are in the water, obviously, but are they getting nibbles? Are they getting more than nibbles? Like, where does this stand? How much interest is there truly in what the Canucks are trying to sell?
Yeah, and so yes, the lines are in without question. I think there's a net there. They just haven't lifted it yet. This is a team that's, and this kind of goes hand in hand with how the rest of the league is. There are a lot of conversations going on league-wide. We just haven't seen the action yet, and the timing of the Quinn Hughes trade was, I think the initial response from the rest of the league was, all right, perfect. Huge bombshell, huge domino to fall. Let's see what kind of comes out of this. And then we hit the holiday freeze, and then that kind of like, it modified things a little bit from that perspective. It put a bit of a halt on some of the discussions. There's a lot of talk. The action is there. It's just a matter of now following through on a lot of this. Kiefer Sherwood conversations, we talked about this a couple weeks ago too, was right after that holiday freeze, things picked up. And the idea that I got was, and the notion that I got was, this was going to be something that was going to happen sooner than later, hopefully in the first half or mid-January. And A, it hasn't happened. And B, He's now hurt. So that's going to certainly affect things to a certain extent. At the same time, as the conversations have continued, I was told that if there was an opportunity to move him for a second and a third round pick, they could have pulled the trigger on that already. But they have been steadfast on their asking price, which is still believed to be a first round pick plus. So they're going to navigate that. I don't think the injury has really affected that discussion or that price, at least not yet. You've got to wonder how much longer they're going to hold out. Are they going to go to the deadline? There are obviously risks tied to that. I think they wanted some finality, and I know that he would like some as well, because the idea and the perception is he will be moved at some point. It's just a matter of when. And then as that's been going on, the conversations, boys, they've picked up on other players, whether it's DeBrusk or Connor Garland's name has really picked up in the last little bit. They're obviously willing to listen on almost everybody. Petey stuff, which we'll dive into, that's been given a bit of an uptick. So, again, typically when teams give out these types of interviews and divulge certain bits of information, there's usually action that follows, because as much as it is keeping the fan base apprised, it's also a bit of a message to some of the other teams that they're talking to that, all right, it's time to get to business here.
You can only send out so many memos, right? On the team on the team's WhatsApp group chat, and it's amazing that those smoke signals are still needed. Should people believe that Philip Hronek and Elias Pettersson could really be traded? And I picked those two players because they are arguably, they are the best defenseman, the best forward on this team. Both of whom have an age that is palatable for them to endure the rebuild and still be there with the team on the other side. But they're useful players. Right shot defensemen do not grow on trees.
Yep.
Top six centermen do not grow on trees. But do you get, like Quinn Hughes, I think you can very much make the argument, got back fair return for what he is. You can quibble.
Yeah.
But I think it is defensible. I don't know that Canuck fans will be as excited with what they get back from either of a Hronek or a Pettersson trade, but you tell me.
I have not, if they're moving Philip Hronek, it's an overpay. That's my belief of the situation. I don't think he's legitimately out there, but given their situation, sure, you want to overpay. Like, this is similar to St. Louis and Robert Thomas. We'll listen, but you've got to make us, you got to prove to us that you actually want this guy, and you're overpaying for this player. I think it's the same situation here with Philip Hronek and the Vancouver Canucks. Elias Pettersson, different. I don't think he's been out of the trade waters, I guess, or the discussion points at all this entire season. I think the Canucks have been willing and have continued to be willing to listen. Now, the timing of the season, things will escalate at this time of year, sure, and they'll probably continue to until the trade deadline. But Vancouver's openness to having that discussion has always been there, going back to, again, last season. So I think Hronek, different story. You make us an offer we can't refuse kind of situation. Whereas with Petey, it's a little bit different. And there is a willingness to listen on that. You're right. The return will not be as robust as the Quinn Hughes deal. Different circumstance. But this is a player that a lot of teams believe, and this is not a Canucks narrative. I know this was brought out by whoever, maybe it was Dregs, earlier on this week, that, they're afraid that the team is afraid that if he goes somewhere else, he'll flourish, he'll regain. This isn't a Canucks message. This is what some teams believe, that a change of scenery will revive his career and get it back to point-a-game plus plateau. And the Canucks recognize that. So if that's what you believe, what are you willing to pay for that? So I don't know if this is necessarily something that's going to happen between now and the trade deadline. This might be something that's more geared towards the offseason. And I think you guys have touched on it. I know, Jim, Irf's mentioned this as well. This might be something more geared towards the offseason. But that's not to say the Canucks aren't going to listen now or continue to listen. And if the right deal is presented, I don't see a scenario where they won't seriously consider it. And then once they do, then it's up to the player himself. I don't think this is also a scenario where they're going to Elias Pettersson and his agent saying, give us your top 5 teams or 10 teams or whatever it is. I think this is a case-by-case situation where if they feel they're comfortable enough with a package, then they'll go back to his camp and then he'll have to make a decision. We're not there yet, but I think that's likely how this plays out if he is moved at any point.
I'm with you that I just don't see teams clamoring to get their hooks into Elias Pettersson for a playoff push here. And every day that goes by is another day and another dollar that comes off the books with a pretty onerous contract. I know you and Irv talked about it on your show, and this is no reporting. I want to be clear on that one. But on a lot of levels, don't the Los Angeles Kings make some sense for Elias Pettersson at some point with Anze Kopitar walking away at the end of the season?
Yeah, a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, look, Kopi's done this year. We know this is the end of it. They moved Phil Deneau already. They're a little bit thin up the middle moving forward. They've got Quinton Byfield and Alex Turcotte. That's it, effectively, going into next season. I think LA, yes, there would be interest. I think he fits exactly what they're looking for. And I think they're a team that's willing to pay the $11.6 million a year for this player. Do they believe he's a point a game type? I don't know yet. I don't think they've gotten to that point. But yes, I think optically looking at things, checking out their roster, reading all the tea leaves, and then trying to push this all together. I think the LA Kings do make a lot of sense, but there's an acquisition cost. What are they willing to give up? They're not going to trade Quinton Byfield, and I don't get the sense they have any desire to move Brandt Clarke. So from Vancouver's perspective, well, what the hell are you giving us? So there's that element as part of it as well. What's the cost? What type of price are you willing to pay? And from Vancouver's side of things, is this beneficial to us to even go in this direction, explore this possibility? I think there might be additional options elsewhere. I could certainly see some teams, whether it's a Utah or Carolina or Chicago or whomever, Philadelphia's poked around in the past. If they go in those directions, I think there might be better overall deals elsewhere. But from a fit perspective, I think LA would definitely be up there. It's just I don't see what package would make sense or what type of return would make sense from Vancouver's side of things.
Reverse construction, how antsy is Carolina with Svechnikov on that file?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting look. Kotkaniemi has already been the guy that they've been trying to get rid of for a while.
Yeah.
I guess he plays center, but he also plays the wing. And it's term. He was offered up for Deneau, and LA didn't want to take on the term because he's basically a 40-point player right now. And effectively a third-line center, maybe second-line winger. Svechnikov, I think that would be appealing for Vancouver, without question, for that caliber player to come back. Just on the big picture type of scenario. Whether that's the direction they want to go, I'm not sure, because especially now that you've embraced this rebuild, you're moving out one guy in his mid-20s for another guy in his mid-20s. I don't know if that's the direction that makes sense for what they're thinking. I think just on the overall scope, yeah, I think as centerpieces, there's an alignment here. That would make sense. But from now the team accepting the fact that they are going through this rebuild, which I don't know how authentic of a rebuild it will be. Suddenly it's 2 years, whatever. So maybe the hybrid thing still is in play. But I just don't know if they are going in that direction officially and committing to it. I don't know if that's the type of return that makes sense for this group. But Carolina's not afraid to take swings. and that wouldn't overall, like, it wouldn't surprise me. At the same time, whether it's LA or Utah or whomever, how much of a willingness does Vancouver have to move him, A, in conference, and B, in division? Like, that's the other element, that I think factors in for them. If this does happen at any point, now, off season, whatever, I think the overall preference, unless you're blown out of the water, is to move him east, and they got to figure that out, obviously.
I think, a lot of us here in Vancouver have had the blinders on because the Canucks have bottomed out, and there's just been trade talk around this team all season long. The longer they wait, though, and the closer they get to the deadline, there are going to be other teams that are shopping players as well. And I think that was one of the reasons people wanted the Canucks to get out in front of the curve here. So another night goes by where the Rangers are down 6-0 at home. They're chanting "Fire Drury." You have to think something's going to give there. Columbus makes its play. If Rick Bowness can't breathe some life into the Blue Jackets, they've got some players that could be of interest. Where are the other hot spots? Where should people sort of be looking here as they gauge the playing field of potential traders around the National Hockey League?
Yeah, I'll start in New York. I'm glad you brought him up because I don't know what the hell that was last night. 8-4, and your post-game response is, yeah, okay, we played like crap in the first period, but the rest of the game was great. You still gave up 4 more goals in the next 2 periods. So
yeah, they won the third, though, David. They won the third.
Charging hard.
Yes. Yeah. Good job, boys. There's more smoke surrounding the New York Rangers, and typically when you and Canucks know this, when you're in the crapper, everybody's going to start calling. There's a lot of smoke surrounding the Rangers and some of their guys. Latest I heard was Vinny Trocheck, a couple teams checking in on him. So I don't know how close any of that is, and he does have some no trade protection, but there is interest from a couple of teams in him, and I've got to imagine some of the other players on this club are starting to garner more interest as teams try to vulture in and pluck some guys away. So definitely looking at the Rangers. From a seller's perspective, look, St. Louis is still there. I brought up Thomas a little bit, in just as a case-by-case scenario example to bring up earlier. But the rest of this club, they're willing to listen on him. They're willing to listen on almost anybody. That includes Parayko. That includes Kyrou still. Some of their players on pending UFA deals like Joseph and Sundqvist are topics of discussion. And then, of course, Braden Shen and Justin Falk and Pius Suter. These are 3 guys on deals that have 1 more year left on each. Suter's been battling injury for a good portion of the season, and he's out right now. But all 3 of those guys have generated interest as well. So I'm definitely looking at St. Louis to see when the first shoe drops. They've only made they've made 2 trades this season, but they've been very minuscule. They're AHL type deals in the grand scheme. I'm waiting for them to make the big move from an NHL side of things. So that's a team that I'm looking at as well. But the Rangers, definitely a lot of smoke there that's been building up. St. Louis trying to, and still being open for business, but trying to make, some moves. And Ottawa's another one. From the buyer side of things, there's some talk of D, but I still believe that this is a team that continues to explore trying to bring in a top 6 guy. And the Sens, great win last night. Maybe they build off that, but Steve Staios, not afraid to kick tires and try to make some noise. He's been trying for a good chunk of the season to bring in somebody that fits that top 6, likely on the wing, that could provide some additional supplement secondary scoring. So that's another club that I'm looking at right now.
Any idea why Staios would have gone through the effort of going to Montreal to watch the Canucks play the Habs when the Canucks were going to Ottawa the very next night?
And just to freak everyone out, to get the blood boiling for fans. That was a little peculiar to me. I mean, look, it's what, an hour and 15 away, quick drive, nothing crazy. So you want to keep tabs on some of the other clubs that are out there. I don't think anything is imminent on that front. But Yeah, he's keeping tabs and he's doing his thing across the board.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know what his decision process is. I don't know what the mindset is. Other than I found it personally amusing because you're playing the next night. So if you really want to stir stuff up, this is a great way to do it. I think he took a little bit of enjoyment in that, but at the same time, he's also doing business.
Last one from me. You've talked about the Canucks that have clear value. They're performing pretty well. Like Garland's had an okay season. Brooks has been okay. Hronek and Pettersson, good seasons. What about the struggling Canucks? Have you come across, and I can understand why they wouldn't be interested in Thatcher Demko because of his injuries, but Demko and Besser, the well-paid, underperforming guys, if there was an appetite for the Canucks to get out from underneath these contracts that are both brand new, do you think there's a possibility there, or are those two guys that are probably rooted here because of their lack of performance or availability this year?
I think Demko would be based on. Sorry, let me rephrase. I think if there's a Demko option, it's June around draft. Otherwise, forget about it. Brock's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
He's got his trade protection. He's happy with where he's at. And after all the BS that he had to deal with last season, I don't see a scenario where he's going to suddenly say, "Yeah, I'll help you guys out. I'll waive." I just don't see it.
Jeff, you good?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a team that guys in a 21 game drought right now. It's just like
nobody wants that
too.
Yeah.
That that's another factor. As part of it, and we know, like he goes through. I mean, this is a hell of a long stretch, but he goes through spurts. But I just think even if there is interest, I don't imagine he would entertain it right now.
David, pleasure as always. Enjoy Marner Fest, both legs of it, and may you survive it all there in the city that never sleeps. Thank you for this.
Dave.
We'll talk to you next week.
Yep. All right. Thanks, boys. See ya.